My best friend's been driving for over 10 years. And he said, look, if you're gonna work part-time, you might as well make as much money as you can. And for a part-time job, it pays pretty good for this area. I enjoy the elementary kids more than I do anything. But it's been a lot of fun.
People tell me that, how can you drive kids? And I'm like, hey, that's the best part of the job. The rest of it's a piece of cake. So, but I really enjoy, driving, and keeps me active, gets me up in the morning.
I drive the school bus because I love it. It's an awesome job. I love going and picking up the students, watching them get on the bus, the little ones with the big smiles on their face, wondering, all the excitement they're going to be doing while they're going to school, middle, high school. I drive all ages. It's just a wonderful job.
I drive because I'm retired Navy, and it's great, after serving my country, to give back to my community. Our kids are the future of America, and it's great to have a part to where I'm contributing to them and to make sure that they get what they need.
We will train you from the get-go. We should be able to help you through the whole process of getting your learner's permit, getting your endorsements, and then we have a 24-hour classroom training that we do, and then we do your 24-hour on-the-road training. So we do all of it in-house. All you need to do is come with a love for children.
if you watch it, it takes a long time to get to 5 o'clock. There we go. No, not yet.
Is that kind of like watching the water
Exactly.
boil?
All right, it's 5 o'clock, folks. I'd like to call the Monday, March 15th, 2021 Roanoke County School Board work session to order. Madam Clerk, the roll.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Here. Well, this is a work session dedicated to the budget, so I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Nicely, or Susan, whoever would like to start.
Yeah, well, I'll just start us off by saying I appreciate all of Ms. Peterson's hard work on this. Obviously the budget process is a difficult one, to go through. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of moving parts. There's lots of details that we have to wait on various parties to get to us to put all together. So I know she's been working tirelessly to put all this together, and I think she's done so in a way that is accessible not only to board members, to the public, or anybody else who wants to understand the information. And so we'll just turn it over to her. She's going to walk us back through really the information that you've heard before in prior work sessions. And of course, this is the meeting where we need to make some decisions, because we do need to have the board adopt a budget by the end of the month. So.
Okay.
All right.
May I ask a quick question? Is that a statewide requirement, that the timing of the budget adoption? Okay.
It is.
Thanks. Yep.
You gotta have it to the board of supervisors.
Well, I wanted, is that's across the state, not just in Roanoke County? That was my question. Okay.
So the agenda, real quick, will touch base on the state revenue update, because we have the final General Assembly numbers. We'll have an update on some benefits information. I have updated each of the replacement plans, and then we have all of the balancing worksheets in here with the updated numbers and the timelines, just our last couple of slides. So with the state revenue update, on March 9th, the General Assembly did adopt a state budget, and the VDOE has taken everything and crunched all their numbers and provided the information to us. So this slide keeps getting wider, because I'll just keep adding my columns to it so you can see as we go through the process. And the last columns I have added are the General Assembly columns. And this is a unique year, because instead of, typically we come to you and bring the governor's budget, then we bring you the House and the Senate budget, and typically the final budget is somewhere in between those two. Well, this year we were pleased to come back and see that the final budget is actually higher than both of those numbers. So that was actually to our benefit. What you're going to see up here, and I'll just really highlight this, I don't want to beleaguer through these numbers. The SOQ numbers are down 1.2 million, and that is basically due to our ADM. The budget last year we had 13,483, and this year we are using the VDOE budget of 13,087. And so that's really what's driving that first number, just the reduction in the per pupil, the number of students. The sales tax you'll see is really up. And that's because last year when COVID hit, if you'll remember, I came back and asked to reduce the revenue by, I think, an additional $1 million. We were very conservative. We had no idea what was going to come down the pike with that. And so we do have additional revenues there coming in. So that's good to see. The incentive is where you're going to see our compensation. And if we are fully funded, which means in the next slide I'll explain the compensation piece, but the total amount that, if we comply with what's on the next slide, we will get $2,753,349. So that's a nice influx of money to support our employees. The no loss funding did go down a little bit. That ended up at $586,808. And then we got a little bit of at-risk money. So those are the big drivers up in the top part let's see, I should have a pointer up here. Up in the top part of this slide. The instructional resource came down, not because of the dollars, but just, again, the number of students that we are projecting. The technology replacement fund actually went up a little bit because we do put in here the infrastructure operation and operations lottery money. Last year was the first year we got this, and the state allocated 30% out for non-recurring use, and the tech equipment qualifies for this use. This year they increased that to 40%, and so and we got additional monies in here. So between them increasing this line item and increasing the percent we had to put in the non-recurring, we got an additional 387 we were able to put in the tech fund, which was a little helpful with taking away the laptop revenue. And the grant fund, our additional revenue here is through the VPI program and the community provider add-on program, which again is for our preschool students. So that's really what's going on with our General Assembly revenue. Now, this next slide is the compensation funding. And I've gotten a lot of questions over this, and so I wanted to try and lay out a picture to try and help everybody understand. The top half of this graph shows this is the Commonwealth's budget. And the way that the General Assembly adopted the budget was to say that any locality that provided a minimum of 2% and a maximum of 5% would receive funding for that whole time period. So it could be offered in the first year, in the second year, or a combination thereof. If it was anything less than 5%, we would get a prorated portion. So if we only gave 2%, they're not going to give us that full amount. They're going to prorate it down. Now below the line, where you can see this is kind of our calendar or timeline, over here on the left-hand side is the...
So it's a 1-to-1. You do 2%, you get 2%, 3%, you get 3%, 5%, you get 5%. So it's not reduced funding, it's just relatable to the compensation.
We would get a prorated portion. We would have to...
It's still a 1-to-1 though, right?
Based on the SOQ position.
Based on the SOQ.
So it's
Yeah.
not fully funded, but
Yeah, but
Yeah.
my point is, it's not, when you say prorated, it's not prorated negatively. It's just, it's proportionate.
Correct.
3%, whatever that not fully funded piece back to. I got you.
That
Okay.
is correct.
That's why, okay.
So the way that we have presented the compensation to you, we have presented it so that we do qualify for the full 5%. And the way that we have done this is, on the left-hand side, is the current year that we're in now. And if you recall, in December, you approved a one-step raise that was unfunded. You used carryover funds. That provided a 1.5% increase for our teachers and a 2.33% increase for our support staff. Fast forward, and we ran the numbers on this side, so this would be...
Let me just stop you for a second, because I'd like you to explain the difference in the percentage between support staff and teachers for those who are watching who don't understand what you just said and may think that we're giving a higher raise to our admin folks versus teachers.
Right. So back, was it in 2016, when Evergreen performed their compensation study, they reduced the admin scale down to 25 steps. And the difference between each step in the admin scale, which is the support scale, I use the terms interchangeably, I probably should not, but the non-teacher scale, just the difference between each, because there's only 25, is 2.33%.
Right, so it's just a function of the scale, not that we're giving a higher raise.
Correct.
Okay.
And then teachers are 30 steps.
Right. And just to clarify, it is a support scale, so it includes, correct me if I'm wrong, positions all the way from custodians all the way up through admin, but it's all non-teacher positions.
Correct. It's everyone not a teacher, correct. So then, starting July 1 of 2021, the plan would be to provide teachers 3.5% through a 2% scale shift and a step, which is 1.5%. So that will be 3.5% for teachers. And then the support side, they would get a step, and this goes down to a 2% step instead of 2.33% step because we expanded those steps back out. And so that reduced the percentage between the steps. And I guess because, Jim, we did go back to 30, right?
Correct.
But because we condensed and we came back out, we did not go back to 1.5% where the teachers were.
We were at 40, how many steps before?
You're correct, Mr. It was 42 steps
Okay.
prior to Evergreen. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So then on the support side, the compensation study would make up the difference. And that's going to vary by employee because the compensation study is to get the individual employee, the HVAC technician, the administrative assistant, the bookkeeper, the plumber, whoever it is, on the marketable position for their trade. And so depending on where they fall, they may have a very large increase or they may have a minor increase. But that difference, plus their step, plus last year's step, should get them close to the 5%. Now, we qualify not because every individual person gets the exact 5%, but because on average, we're giving a 5%. So we do the best we can, and we plan these based off of the scales. Does that make sense?
But there's not an instance where someone's not getting, they're getting as close to the 5% as you can, right?
Anyone who is on the scale. We did not address people who were off the
Right.
scales.
Right. Correct.
Can you tell us somebody that would be off the scale, just as an example?
All board members,
Okay.
Dr. Nicely,
Okay.
and anyone who is already being paid above the top tier of their scale.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if that's it, I'm going to keep moving.
Yep.
All right. So the next thing I wanted to touch base on is returning health benefits to our bus drivers, our bus aides, and our nutrition associates. And I just wanted to cost this out. The last time we had costed this out was back in 2020. And so when we costed it out before, we assumed all bus drivers, all aides, and all nutrition associates would come back in at the single person rate. We took a different approach this time. And in this box over here, we laid out what the current employees who are on the plan have elected. So we've got, all of these people we have 647 people who have elected single wellness. We've got 636 people who haven't elected at all. So we've got 30% have not even elected the insurance. We have 70% who have. So we took these percentages by the election and we applied it to each of the populations for bus driver, bus aide, and nutrition associate to try and determine maybe a more accurate portrayal of just a different way to look at it, if you will. And so for bus drivers, we estimated that 98 bus drivers would take the insurance and they would take these different plans. So this first column would be the employer cost. This would include the HRA contribution along with the monthly premium.
So you're estimating about 100 drivers would take the benefits. Is that
Correct.
correct? Okay.
And then the second column is the actual employee cost. So out of the general fund, the $878,998 is how much we estimate would need to be paid out of the general fund in order to provide these benefits to the bus drivers.
Not just the bus drivers. Oh, yeah, it is just. I
Yeah,
got you.
that would
I
just
got
be
you.
the
I
bus
got you.
drivers. So then, let's flip sides and go into the insurance fund for a second. So that's kind of everything in red. The employee premium coming in is the $320,316. So we have just under 1.2 million coming into the health insurance fund for revenue. For the health fund costs, we estimated just over 1.2 million of claims. Now this is where it gets tricky, because we do have a consultant that comes up with a cost per claim for all of our current employees, because they can see the claims that are coming through and they can estimate based off of what's happening this year, what's going to happen next year. They know the high dollar claims that are coming through and they can kind of project out how that's going to play out, right? With the bus drivers, they have no idea. We have no idea what's going to happen. But we do know that the average age of all of our employees that have elected insurance is 47. We do know that the average age of the bus drivers is 65.
65.
Yes. So that right there drops our bus drivers in a much more costly category. Now, not more costly on a full lifetime, but more costly on an annual basis. So that annual claims cost is going to be higher. By how much, we don't know. My estimate in here is 20% higher.
But wouldn't the goal be, and I know I'm probably not being politically correct here, but wouldn't the goal be that if we offered the benefits, that age would come down? It wouldn't get to where, we're looking at the average overall, but it would come down, hopefully, some in the average from 65 maybe to 60 or 62.
I think the way I would state that would be that could happen. Our goal obviously is to fill the positions, because
That's right.
we all
I
know
don't care,
that it's
but,
ongoing. You're right on the edge, filling it. So that's our goal. But to your point, that could be something that happens as a result.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I don't care if they're 80,
Right.
whatever. But the point is that that's who we would potentially be attracting.
Potentially, right.
Susan, if you can't walk me through, especially with our bus drivers, age being a little bit higher, for those bus drivers that are currently on Medicare, what happens to the health insurance? I mean, some employers,
Good question.
hey, Medicare, you're on your own. Some say sign up for Medicare. You can use our health insurance as, the Medicare supplement. How would that work?
We do not have a policy that anyone who has active insurance can stay on our insurance. And so we would, unless we change the policy, we would allow them to come on. If you are a retiree, when you become Medicare eligible, you're dropped.
Would it behoove us to look at that policy just because a lot of I can't give you a specific figure, but I would say the majority of corporations, once their employees hit 65, they're going to Medicare. And that's another way to help us reduce the cost so that maybe we can cover more bus drivers. If we had a good example of, if we knew that our average age of bus drivers is 67, specifically right now, out of 140 bus drivers, how many of those are over 65? I think we should at least, and this is just one person talking, I think we should at least explore that option, to align ourselves with, other companies and corporations out there. That's...
I absolutely
Are they
agree.
considered they wouldn't be considered full-time, which if they retired from another position, then they automatically would be on Medicare. If they're working with us, if they're not full-time, then they would have to go into Medicare, right? I mean, that's the way I understand it. But if they getting benefits from us and they're working enough hours, then they can use the insurance. They could get insurance from us.
But I guess the direction that we're seeking is if we're going to provide benefits to the bus drivers who are part-time, right now our policy is if you're an active employee, then you can stay on our insurance as long as you want.
Well, we could explore options to see, are there options in terms of having a different policy regarding that?
Right.
So, and I'm correct, Jim, in saying that this might be a stupid question, but just because we were to find a way, whether it's this year, next year, whatever it is, to try to restore the benefits, you don't have to make somebody full-time in order to give benefits, right? You can still be part-time.
That's correct. You can give them the full-time rate.
Right.
Not make them a full-time employee. I
Right. So I don't know how that plays into people who are Medicare eligible and all that, but those are all things we have to figure out.
So, Mr. Chairman, so to play off of Mr. Moretz's question, and this is because I don't know, so I'm trying to learn here. If the policy were to be looked at, and maybe this is for another discussion or you to send us an email, what would be the negative? What would be the negatives to asking our folks to go on Medicare at 65 and having the supplement, which I'm sure would be much less costly? And I'm not in the private, well, I am, but not in a corporate world anymore. So I don't know the answers. Maybe you see it more, but to me, I've got to believe that corporate world is saying, look, we'd love to keep you, but at 65 you're eligible. We will provide a supplement, but Medicare's, where you need to move. At that age, it's offered, and now we'll offer a supplement, in lieu of full health coverage. That's got to be a tremendous savings. I mean, I think that's an
Well,
excellent
and
question.
I'm not even sure we would, would we even have to provide some sort of supplement?
Right.
Well, you may not,
But it's
but
definitely worthy of
purchase
study and
Yeah.
exploration and see, like you said, weigh the pros and cons, look at options. I mean, I think that's something we should definitely look into.
The incentive would be, though, being able to provide that supplement, which could average anywhere from $150 to, depending on their income, $200 a month, would be a lot cheaper to us if they were to go on Medicare. And then we'd pay, that would be an incentive to them if you say we'll pay that supplement, which is a lot cheaper than we'd be paying for the insurance.
And so I absolutely agree, but, and I'm kind of getting excited if this is even a possibility for these bus drivers. Is that a possibility of something we could look at as quickly as possible to maybe offer or to use it as information to make decisions if it's even something we would want to do? But is it something we could fast track to see if that's a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, to the extent, I can't personally sit here and say this is how you find that out or whatever, but to the extent, Mr. Bradshaw and team can, look into it and get the information as quickly as possible, and certainly we're willing to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that's an excellent
Right.
question.
I mean, I think all possibilities need to be on the table because, like I say, I think regardless, I think we're going to be in a position to move in this direction in some meaningful ways. If we could find some solutions to do it sooner than later, including this budget, absolutely. We've got to stay competitive with our neighbors.
Perfect.
No
Thank you.
doubt.
And I think, too, when we're talking about that Medicare, it's a lot, I think, better insurance, better than what you would get and have to pay like an 80-20% maybe a possibility. And Jim, you might know more about that, but there is I think a benefit that they would have, and then pick up that supplement, which is anywhere from 100, 200 maybe, around that average, I think, would be, and that would be certainly an incentive, I would think, and they'd have better
That'd be
Medicare
awesome.
insurance.
That'd be a win-win, yeah.
You think Medicare insurance is going to be better than what we offer now,
Yes.
than what we're offering?
Yeah, because I know. I'm there.
Yeah,
And I was in the hospital 8 days, and I paid.
so,
Yeah,
With COVID.
it is. It's a great plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And I mean, you don't, it really is. And,
Are our neighbors forcing their employees 65 and over onto Medicare? Do we know?
We don't know. Well, those are things we need to find out.
well, I'd like to thank Mr. Moretz, because I think that's an excellent question.
Sure.
I think it's something to explore. I mean, if that could, I mean, good Lord, if that could cut our costs, in half.
Right.
Not
Yeah,
only
it gets
for our bus
closer in
drivers, but
range
maybe
of-
some of our older employees,
Sure.
And if what
other
Mr.
employees too.
Ray says is true, we're doing our folks a disservice in not offering that. Now, I don't know, but I agree. If he knows, because he's been there. He's
I've been on
experienced
the
it.
corporate side too.
So, I mean, if we're not, I mean, that's a service we, should be asking. Look, you need to move to this for yourself.
Well, I mean, they'd have that choice, but still, it would be an incentive to
Sure.
us and savings to us in the end.
And my gosh, this is a win. I think, gotta believe, if we can somehow make this work for bus drivers. Thank y'all.
Just going through the same process with the bus aides. They had 32 aides that would have elected under the same scenario, the insurance. General fund would have to pay $288,814, and the employee would contribute $105,247 for the health fund to collect a total of $394. Again, their average age was 70 for the bus aides, and so applying the 20% higher premium to them for the cost of the claim, they were short by about $26,000. So that would just be additional costs going through the health insurance fund. Then in the nutrition fund, in the last column, 85 would elect under the same scenario. Their average age was 53. And so with them being around 53, they're in the same category as the current population. So we did not increase their cost of the claim itself. So you'll see the cost in the nutrition fund is $765,984. The employee would contribute $279,133 for a total contribution to the health fund of $1,045,117. And then the cost of their claims would only be $929,915, using the same costing category as current employees. So then they would end up with a slight surplus on their claims.
Susan, can you explain that just a little bit? I hate to be kind of loop. Maybe everybody else understands it. So the general fund cost is $878, and I'm just doing the bus driver. We can do any one of them, but $878 for the general fund. The employee premium would reduce that amount by $320.
No, that's the additional cost that the employee
That's the
pays.
additional cost.
And so I'm kind of doing two things at one time. I'm showing the cost to the
Well, I see
to the
that now.
general fund, the cost to the employee. So then that's the income to the health fund.
The income is the 1.2.
Yes.
Okay.
Our share and the employee share.
Okay, so that's both. I got you.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then the cost to the health fund is the actual claims cost itself.
Gotcha.
So essentially, in order to balance that, we could pull 81,000 out of the, health insurance reserves.
Yes,
to-
correct.
To meet that.
All right, I'm going to continue because of that. So you're saying 81,000 out of the insurance reserves would make that happen under this scenario?
Well, plus we have
Plus
to,
the 878 we have to
Right.
pay.
Oh, so that's on top. Okay.
right.
Right.
I got you. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be a no-brainer.
Yeah, well, that's what I was
Right.
thinking. That's where I was going.
Right.
We don't have,
You're making it a no-brainer, huh?
please.
Yeah.
I'll go
It's
back.
the 878 that kills you. Yeah. They get you.
Tim was getting ready to pay it.
Yeah.
I just need to sell a couple
I'm
more
gonna
houses.
ask y'all for a donation.
Are there any more questions on this page?
Hope not,
I
no.
have one.
Yes, sir.
How many bus drivers do we have that are over 65? Is that number there?
I'd have to go back and count the exact number over 65. I didn't write that down.
Is it, do you know, a percentage or a ballpark? Is it?
The majority of them.
Okay,
I mean, I
have
would
we,
Because
have
on
we
average, they're
actually,
65.
well, let me ask you a dumb question. Have we actually surveyed them and asked them if they want they actually have to help pay for their insurance, right?
They would
Under
have
this
to.
plan.
Mhm.
I wonder how many of them would actually want to, given the fact that they are probably already on Medicare. Do we know that?
We had
I mean,
surveyed
that's,
them, but it was a while back.
I mean, that's a big deal. I'd like to know that.
I think y'all did it back in 2020, didn't you?
Yes.
It's been a while.
Because if something that we're about to offer a group of people that we have on the payroll right now don't want it,
We can re-administer a survey pretty quickly. But what we had was a couple years old, and we've had a lot of changes, and we also,
okay, but we need to know that, right? Let's
Yeah,
figure that.
but
But
here's-
here's where I want to go with this.
Okay.
What if you know that the majority of your employees don't want the thing that you want to give them, because they already have it, why not think about pricing in any new hires that are not Medicare qualified and offer them benefits? You know, maybe that's a way to get there.
Well, so that to me would be the benefit, is that we'd capture some of that. And I don't know what that would be. I don't have any idea what, but that would be the hope, is that you capture some of that crowd.
I guess there is some surveying that you're going to have to do to figure out whether or not we really need to spend the $878, $998. That's based on the bus drivers that we have now. Many of them may not even want it.
That's
Right. Yeah, so, we've talked about that. Surveying can be helpful. The flip side of that coin is, if they change their mind, you still
Yeah,
have to be able
but-
to provide it, right, so.
I don't know why they would.
Right.
That's a good, yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess we threw a monkey wrench into that one, right? Sorry.
Well, especially if we gather some information
Yeah.
regarding these Medicare options, maybe that other folks do, and then that would give us some real specific questions,
Right.
maybe to do some surveying to try to get a better sense of it.
So that,
Here's where I'm headed. We may find that the price tag to do what we want to do is a lot less than we're even
Yes.
talking
Right.
about here.
Well, absolutely. We've talked
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
because
Okay,
the group
so-
we have is probably gonna, in the majority, say, if they can get Medicare, no.
Right.
And if
I
it's
think-
better,
Yeah.
And especially if we come up with a policy
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
Yeah,
employees
that's
that
the
over
thing.
65, I mean, I
Right.
think that's the
That's
first
the thing,
step.
is coming up with
honestly.
a
We
we'd have
just
to do a
need to make
policy.
sure it's legal.
Right.
Legal's always good.
Yeah.
man, that's great.
Okay, yeah, move on.
Okay. So, I actually started down the process of looking at the dental benefits at the same time because I thought they were all wrapped in together, but then I realized after I'd done all the work that they were not wrapped in here. So you get the extra benefit of taking a look at all of this again for dental because I'd already done the work. To offer dental benefits to our bus drivers, I went through the exact same process. I looked at what our current population has and applied that percentage against our bus drivers. And it looks like we would have 101 bus drivers electing the dental. And this is a lot less because for the dental insurance, two things. We're not self-insured. We just pay a premium to Delta Dental and they incur the claims cost. We just pay a flat out premium. And so it's a little bit simpler, it's a little bit cheaper, the way that this is set up. So in this scenario, our general fund cost would be $38,512 if these estimates held true. And then the employee would, as collectively, contribute $26,968. So we would make enough premiums to pay what we would pay the insurance company. Then you would look at the bus aides, and we would see that 33 aides may possibly elect the dental insurance. So the cost to the general fund would be $12,654. The employees collectively would contribute $8,861 for a total of $21,515. That would then go towards the premium that we would pay the vendor. And then on the nutrition side, the nutrition fund, they would have possibly 88 employees that would elect the insurance. And they would have to cover $33,561. The employees would collectively cover $23,500 for a total of $57,061 that would then cover the vendor cost. So that was another thing that we could look at, and maybe we could even look at this separately and go ahead and do something with this should you desire.
So I guess the question here would be, are we having, I know we've got a problem with all categories, but are we having the same problem with the aides and associates that we have with the bus drivers? Is it the same level?
My understanding is we have a hard time filling those positions as well. Jim could speak to that.
Yes, that's right.
Same level? Okay.
And the reason why I choose all three of these is because back in the day, all three of the benefits were taken away at the same time.
Okay.
One question.
It's a big
Wouldn't
deal.
that be more, for lack of better words, a fixed cost? Because if you've got like a dental, you get a crown, that's going to be a certain amount paid by Delta Dental, and then the employee, has to pay whatever, or Delta, whoever you got. And then you would know that there would be a certain stop charge because that's all they would get, right?
Well, that's why our costs equal the revenue.
Yeah.
Because we
So you'll
charge
balance
the
it.
premium that the vendor
Yeah,
charges
yeah.
us.
You'll be revenue neutral. Or, yeah.
Yep, you're exactly right.
Okay.
So then I wanted to, I updated the insurance reserves, and I just wanted to share this with you. On the dental insurance side, we ended last year with $45,000. Through February, we've seen revenue of $928,000 and expenditures of $921,000, and our balance is at $51,000. So that's about right in line. On the health insurance fund, last year we ended with $7.9 million in reserves. Revenue, we increased almost $7 million so far through February. And expenditures, we've got $4.3 million, and that includes the transfers out from the current year's budget, the $2 million plus the extra little bit for the carryover for the bonus, or the bonus and the raise. So right now we're sitting at $6.3 million in reserves in the health insurance fund. Last year, our consultant did provide us a letter that showed, based on the information at that time, so that was not including any additional populations, right, that they recommended a min-max of 3.7 to 4.2 million to be in here. So we are still sitting a little bit, 2.1 million higher than our max. So we are still sitting comfortable, even though we have pulled 2 million out to use in the current year. That being said, and the potential of possibly adding the bus drivers and not knowing what those claims would be, I would feel comfortable if we don't dip into the reserves again to, plan on, next year if we do make a move, or even this year if we make a move to add the bus drivers, we have that extra little bit in there in case we do have a large claim or two, or the claims do go up a little bit that was unexpected. So I think that we can handle that extra little bit.
I like that. I mean, especially with your projections. I mean, we could have we could have another, well, it's more than 10%. I mean, probably about another, if we were to cover, just based on, how many total employees we have that are currently on the program, it looks like that we'd have about another 18 to 19% insured. so let's just say 20%. I mean, we definitely want to make sure that, I mean, just add 20% to that 3.7 and 4.2 number there. So I would always rather keep that fund healthy than dip it too much.
Certainly. And then the risk management is our workers' compensation. We ended last year with 1.3 million. The revenue, we have not put our claims cost in yet. So we've got to do that journal entry. And then we have seen 158,000 in expenditures. So our balance has come down just a little bit. So moving on to our replacement plans. So we have shown all of these replacement plans to you. What I'd like to do over the next couple of pages, the textbook plan has not had any changes, so that's why it's alone. But all of the plans after that, what you'll see when you open up your book, you'll see the old plan and the revised plan side by side so that you can see what's changed. Just to remind you, with the textbook adoption plan, we do have our spending needs up top and our funding sources down below. And we do have highlighted the transfer from general fund, the 514,780. This does represent the VDOE required local match that currently is sitting in the general fund, but we would like to make efforts towards funding our textbooks and getting this chunk of money over to help the instructional team. So there's that fund. If there's no questions, I'll move on. So then the fleet fund, and I've got to open this up. And I'm going to flip to the new page. So on the fleet fund, some of the changes that you're going to see is I did pull out the interest income. Remember, I talked the last time that we really don't foresee a lot of interest income. In the current year, we have earned $776, and we have budgeted $15,000. So I really don't want to budget too much next year and rely on that. So I did pull that down in the fleet fund and just pull that out. Anything, just because I don't budget it doesn't mean it's not going to go in there. We're still going to earn interest. That'll just kind of be gravy on the top. We're just not going to rely on something that's not a reliable number. We did reduce the general fund transfer from 675 down to 500. So we pulled it down a little bit. And we increased our estimated beginning fund balance from 701,862 that I presented last time to the 910,550. I have updated that through February. I don't think we're going to see any more spending out of this fund. It does take into consideration the $50,000 that we transferred into the fleet fund from year-end carryover, and it does take into consideration the $171,516 that we transferred in at the mid-year revenue increase that the county gave us. We transferred that in here as well. We're not planning on using it this year. We just transferred in here to get the balance up so that we can use it next year.
Just take into consideration the plan that Mr. Lowe presented to us about saving money by not having two people in one vehicle and so forth. Is that figured into this?
Yes, this plan is based off of replacing all of our vehicles over the next 10 years and then having a cycle to where we're rotating. We have a good rotation of vehicles being replaced on a timely manner. But as of right now, the quantity that we have, with the staff we have, we're okay. That's not saying that some of our vehicles are not in rough shape, so they are, but this will allow us to begin that replacement next fiscal year.
Okay, thank you.
So then, are there any other questions on the fleet fund changes?
No, I mean, the numbers changed a little bit, but it looked like the ultimate our ultimate goal and the number of vehicles and buses we're replacing isn't affected any, so.
The only
That's
thing
great.
that's changed is the
Right,
income.
the beginning, or the ending balance, and yeah,
Yep.
no, that's great.
And that's the common theme you're going to see throughout all these changes. Is me truing up that beginning balance and the revenue numbers. So then moving on to the technology replacement fund, you've got the original and then the updated plan. So in the updated plan, as I mentioned to begin with, the state infrastructure and operations went up from $969,798 to $1.3 million. So that went up a little bit with the final General Assembly budget. The transfer from the general fund came down from 1.973 down to 1.168 million. And then the beginning balance went from 689 to 1.57. So we had a lot of activity in the current year, which helped to increase the fund balance. And the activity included transferring revenue over to cover the laptop fees that we didn't charge, or we charged but we refunded back to the parents this year. So we transferred that from the carryover this year. We transferred over the 1.2 million from the mid-year revenue over. We've trued all of that up. We've done some COVID spending out of there, but we're going to reimburse the fund for that. And we've trued this up to where we're going to, what that should look like at the end of the year.
Reduce that from originally 1.2 to like 600? Wasn't that what was originally?
The 689 here,
Uh-huh.
that's what the original estimated fund balance was to begin with. There were some errors in that and some
Oh, okay.
misjudgments, if you
Okay.
will. And then this is more of a truer number. It's always hard when I first bring the replacement plans, because that's in December and not all of the spending has occurred. And that was also right around the time we were talking about the replacement fund and how to use a year-end carryover. And so we've had a lot of activity in this fund per se.
Okay.
So the CMP is kind of exciting. So Dr. Nicely and Mr. Lowe and I met today, and I'm just going to flip to the new one. So hopefully we are getting about 4.3 million of coronavirus response and relief supplemental appropriations, Act elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds. That's a big mouthful. It's about $4.3 million of state money, and I've got to submit an application August or April 1st for it. And part of the funds can go for improving air quality and doing some facility improvements. Some of it's going to go towards learning loss and summer remediation. So we have all of the directors and executive directors and assistant superintendents and everyone's looking and submitting different ideas of how we can most productively utilize this federal funding in order to best support the needs of our students. One of the ways that we identified to help with our budget next year, Mr. Lowe went through and identified items in our HVAC for next year in CMP. Not all of it, but most of that 565, all of the plumbing, and all of that preventative maintenance qualify the 652 for being paid for under that federal grant. And so it is going to be our recommendation that instead of using general fund money, we just use the grant money for that. Same thing for the 2021 budget year. The current year that we're in now, we've already set aside that million. And if you recall, we set it aside, but we put it into William Byrd, and we're going to take it back out of William Byrd. But when we take it back out of William Byrd, we've got, and that's on another page, I'll get there in a minute, about 810,000 sitting in the CMP that qualify for this grant as well. And so we think 348, so the remaining of next year's CMP can be used from reserves that we will have, because we're going to shift a lot of the money from the current year's CMP into reserves, because we're going to use all of that money out of the grant.
What is the total that they're offering in the grant?
We're going to get 4.3 million out of the grant.
4.3, and that's federal money?
It is federal money.
That's the current one, and we're also anticipating another large sum out of the
One that
bill
was
that was
just
just
passed.
signed.
Yeah, I heard that. That could be a significant windfall as well.
Is there any time restrictions on this money?
This one is September 2023, which is why we've gone out. You'll see
Yeah.
we're trying to pick up a little bit here and a little bit here.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And is it HVAC? I mean, is it related to specific items?
Yeah, the HVAC in here will be for air quality. We're going to add some air quality components so that it will qualify.
There's actually a descriptive list of things that could qualify, and Chris is working on several things that could fall in that category, beyond just HVAC, and just I think that could really help us take care of some real needs. So it's
all of the plumbing
Is that with the
that's
red arrow? The ones that qualify, the red arrow?
yes, sir. All of the plumbing on here are replacing faucets, and if we replace them with the touchless faucets, that 100% qualifies. The preventative maintenance are getting the filters for the HVAC, and so that would qualify. So yeah, Mr. Lowe's done a great job of going through and identifying really great ways to spend this funds to allow us to use general fund money more appropriately, inventively.
We see you smiling under that mask.
He needs to turn that mask inside out.
A true VT man speaking.
Okay, he's loyal.
So as you know, with the my mouse isn't going to work.
We couldn't have spent that CMP money the way we did with the maintenance at a better time when we did. That was a well-placed time.
So going into the CIP, you've got your original CIP, and then we've got the adjusted CIP, because the CMP goes through the CIP, and this is where you can see the current year. Here's the 810,000 over here. I know this is really small, so I apologize. So these two boxes down here make up your 1 million general fund transfer, and Mr. Lowe has identified 810,000 that would qualify under the grant. So that's part of what would end up being used in the current year. Any questions?
We'll get the new Bird Center in 2031, right?
That's right.
All right, good deal.
We're doing it in 2023.
All right, I'm going to get out of this, because then the next pages are our balancing pages. And I thought it'd be easier for you. Oh, why did that not? There we go. So I just have the Excel file, so it will scroll up on the screen. You've got your pages in front of you. This is the balancing and total sheet that you have. And then I also have a cheat sheet off to the side so that if you want to start plugging numbers, we can do that as well tonight. Some quick changes on the revenue. The General Assembly budget went up a little bit, so that 4.277001 is reflected as state revenue income. One other adjustment that we put in here, many years ago, the schools used to retain their parking fees. When students would drive into school, they would retain them. Back, I guess, in the recession, we started to collect that and keep that here at central office to help cover our costs and I guess the operation side of the house. So we would like to help the schools out and take that back out of our revenue and leave that back at the schools so that they could retain that to help with their discretionary funding. And so that's going to actually pull our revenue down a little bit. So then our overall revenue is $6,091,000, and I can go through every line item if you want, or I can just kind of hit the highlighted changes. I just don't want to bore you. It's already been an hour. I don't want to bore you.
Just tell us at the end of the day, what can we do and what can't we do? How about that?
All right, that's the next sheet.
All right.
So that's $6,091,031. And then coming to the compensation piece, we had a little bit of a change. We did go back and sharpen our pencils and found some grants that were miscoded in the general fund. And so our needs came down a little bit. So that helped us a bit. This is not taking people and putting them in grants. It was just the data that we had some people misclassified. And so when I had the ladies that run our grants come in and look at the individuals and compare exactly who they have in their annual plan with who I had in the grants, we were able to find just over $200,000 of savings in the general fund. So then our needs for compensation is $4,593,313. So then moving down to our expenditure deferrals, the three items I have in orange are recommendations for maybe unique funding opportunities. The transfer to the CMP, which would normally be a general fund transfer to the CMP, is where we had talked about, we have identified that the grant will be able to pay for all of that. And so that is an amount we're thinking we might not need to have come out of the general fund this year, because we will have all of those needs met through the grant. Now, Dr. Nicely will need to speak with Mr. O'Donnell and ensure, because this is part of the county comprehensive financial policy, and ensure that they are comfortable with us using a different funding source for the CMP. But at the end of the day, we are putting $1 million into our CMP. So I would not imagine that they would have a problem with that, because we are getting our needs met. We're just not having to do it through operations. The next two items in orange, we are recommending that you consider maybe pulling them out of the budget this year for the 2021-2022 budget, and consider revisiting our carryover policy. The current carryover policy takes everything that is in the general fund that is surplus that it remains and splits it 50-50 to major and minor capital. Well, everything that sits in the technology replacement plan and everything that sits in the fleet replacement plan are all capital. And so I would recommend that you consider allowing ourselves some flexibility with our carryover policy it would remain compliant with the county's policy because they just say it has to stay with capital. And that would be compliant because we would be keeping it with capital. And so I am recommending that you consider our year-end policy be opened up to allow us the flexibility to start putting year-end one-time money into our technology replacement fund, into our fleet replacement fund, into our minor capital fund, and into our major capital fund. So those are our four funds that really feed into capital. And in an instance like this where we really could use the operating budget for good needs, and we suspect that we will have a surplus at the end of this year, and we can plan that can come out of year-end surplus, then I think that would behoove us to do so.
Can we do that without adjusting the current policy with the county?
The county's policy doesn't need
It's
to
just
change.
50 into, it's 50-50, right?
It's just our policy.
It's our policy.
That
Okay.
stipulates that, yeah.
Because their policy just says capital.
I don't know that you can argue with flexibility. I mean, I like the idea of having that as flexible, and you're right, those are capital items.
Right. Right, well, I mean,
That's an accounting, I mean, that's an accounting.
It's a one-time purchase, I mean, that's
Right.
kind of what that surplus needs to be.
I'll tell you
used.
why I like the idea even more to do that is because we have this influx of federal and state money that we're going to be using for what used to be CIP projects, major and minor, right? Now we have an opportunity to use surplus operating funds to take care of some of this other technology stuff that we need to do. So I think it's a good idea.
Well, what Ms. Peterson is setting up here, and I'll let her explain it, is a situation that really circles back around to our initial conversation in terms of our health reserve insurance fund, and I think positions us to really go in the direction we want to go. And depending upon what we find out, based on y'all's suggestions with this Medicare thing, I mean, I think we'll be well positioned to, possibly look at doing something this year, and we can, go back and look at that health and insurance fund. I think it's in a good spot. Certainly, at the very least, I think we're positioning ourselves up, for next year. So I think that this move will help when on that front. But I'll let you explain that.
Yeah, what these all of these three items add up to 1.9 million, which is just shy of our 2 million revenue loss because we had the one-time transfer from the health insurance. And so by doing these actions right here, we don't have to dip back into our health insurance fund, and we can leave that intact where it is.
Very nice.
I will give you the heads up that I did look at our February personnel projection, and we do look like we're sitting at about 2 million of personnel surplus right now. And so that would cover, we do have $1,256,423 of reserves that we set aside in the CIP for William Byrd. So we would have to cover that first. The county has already alerted me that they have some significant needs with the CSA fund. And so they're going to ask for approximately $75,000 of our year-end capital for the CSA. It will be split evenly. So they're asking, they're going to chip in $75,000. We'll chip in $75,000. And so that total amount will more than be met by the personnel surplus that we expect to have.
Let me ask a question. Maybe Jim can. Why do we have a personnel surplus?
Well, right now, from what I was looking at, we've got a large amount sitting in the EWIP, the Employee Retirement Plan,
Okay.
where they're just not working a lot of their days for the current year because of the COVID. We also have a lot left over in the substitutes, where we've not needed a lot of substitutes.
Right. Okay.
So we've
So it's not that we've held back on hiring teachers.
no.
Okay, because I wanted to make sure that wasn't the case. All right.
We just have other pots of money
see.
that we typically would be using, but due to the unusual year.
The point that I wanted to make is that we wouldn't want to be from I mean, just from an operational perspective, the fact that we're in the business of teaching, if we actually are not filling teaching positions because we're afraid of our budget, that wouldn't be a good thing.
Yeah, not at all. Mr. Bradshaw
Okay,
has a point,
good.
though, but not at all.
We are fully staffed.
Perfect. Okay. Good.
Now, you're saying that we would have to change our policy.
Yes, sir.
What would it read?
I have not written that up yet.
Well, I mean, generalize what you
Just-
would say.
Just something to the effect of year-end surplus would be allocated to these 4 funds, subject to the school board direction. I would keep it simple.
But you want to use it for capital, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
So I
we've
would
got
put capital projects or
projects.
capital equipment, capital projects and equipment.
Right.
I mean, consistent with accounting rules.
Yeah, it could,
Exactly.
if currently it's major capital
Yeah.
reserves, minor capital reserves, we would
Right.
add to it, fleet replacement.
When you buy a
technology
unit of
replacement.
property, it's capital.
Right,
Right.
that's right.
Yep.
Some capital appreciates and some depreciates. When we get into the bus funds and the technology, I mean, all that stuff's gonna depreciate when our real estate and the other buildings are not gonna depreciate, like some of those other funds, would be my thought.
So then this 900,000, we are looking at seeing a revenue surplus of $1 million, just looking at our sales tax. And so if we do change our policy and we go with allowing the option of putting it into the tech replacement fund and the fleet fund, then the sales tax surplus would cover us being able to do this as well. And then I think we would still have some left over after that. But it's still early in the day to know exactly what our surplus would be. But I do see that we are starting to build up some balance.
So what were those cumulative amounts? 2 million?
I think $2 million in personnel and at least $1 million in sales tax,
Okay,
if not more than that.
okay.
I'm comfortable announcing $1 million.
So, and then maybe I'm redundant again here. The surplus, the way we have it broke down now, it goes 2/3 CIP, 1/3.
Yeah, it used to be 2/3, 1/3, we
No,
changed
it's
it last year to
50-50.
50/50, right.
Yeah.
So that surplus is what we're talking about going into the CIP, CMP, whatever. I just keep thinking about this with the, I'm not gonna belabor it, but yeah, so, I mean, we've complained about things that didn't get done in years past because they would have $6 and $8 million surpluses. I'd hate to see us delay this. I don't want to keep bringing it up, but the bus drivers, if there's a way, and I know that we'd have to ask for special, all that stuff, so.
I think going in this direction positions
Gives us
this.
that opportunity.
Yeah, honestly.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, thank you. Yep,
And we don't have to argue about year-end money.
right. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay, so then fixed increases were no changes in that section. Administration, Dr. Stegall took a look at the HSTEP program and called me and said that if she needed an assistant, an instructional assistant, that will be something we could probably fund from the grant. So she went ahead and pulled that out at this time. So it went down a little bit. And then I trued up, I added the dental benefit pieces in here for our bus age drivers and nutrition associates. And I dropped in the current estimates that I calculated for the health benefits. And that's it. So, what I have, if you, and I just started this, so you say if you like it or not like it, and if you don't, I can backtrack. Total revenue of $6 million. We do the full compensation, and subtract that out.
Yeah, it's not a calculator.
Subtract out the expenditure deferrals, subtract out the fixed increases. So that's taking care of pretty much all of our have-tos and all of the compensation. If we add back those 3 items in orange, the CMP, the tech plan, and the fleet plan, we could do the dental benefits, and we would have $22,000 you could find somewhere to put.
Run
Okay.
that by me again.
Yeah.
What is the 22,000
That's left over.
That's revenue
left
you
over
can
for
spend.
what? I mean, the whole, I'm a little lost.
So this is your
The
revenue.
whole budget is what you're saying?
Yeah, here's your revenue,
Okay,
and then this is all of your spending.
I see. So if we do everything, we basically, in other words, we've spent it all on those items right there.
Yeah.
Full-time dental, is I'm reading right?
Yeah, I just threw that in there in case you wanted to.
It's really not a lot of money when you think
At
about
least
it.
I
go
know,
ahead and
but
do that.
I don't see, I mean, so are we leaving our nutritional workers out high and dry then? For the dental?
This is the general fund. We would have to look specifically at the nutrition fund. We can offer it to them as long as they can afford it, unless you wanted to supplement the nutrition fund.
I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, I don't think
No,
people are
thank you.
clamoring up for dental benefits. I mean, you know, it's just my opinion,
you're
but, I would rather do it all in one, you know, health and dental in one fell swoop, but that's, you know.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
So I mean,
Is that gonna move the
Mate.
needle?
Yeah.
So if we didn't do it, you had $73,000 to pick from your list.
well, I think that what we need to do is recommend what that should be done for. So, but based on our conversation this evening, you know, I think, you know, there's some work to be done in terms of figuring out this Medicare thing. And, you know, if that price tag for the health insurance benefits for the drivers gets down to something that looks more manageable, even if we have to, if we go this route as far as using year-end for the tech fund, and the health insurance benefits, you know, looks like it's within reach, you know, by, even if we have to dip into health insurance reserves for
Because we're
1
not
year.
touching those, right?
You're right, exactly.
We've kept that out.
Then, yeah, we can't go the full-blown, or at least that's not what we recommend, because you have the offsetting claims, but depending upon what we find out from your ideas this evening with the Medicare, in terms of, you know, could we do a policy around that, doing the surveying, if it winds up being within reach, I think we circle back around and make that recommendation. And
Do you have just one sheet that shows a list of all the unfunded things that we can't do, that you really felt that?
yeah, she can pull it up in your booklets on pages 25 and 26.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, 25 and 26. All right, let me just make a point, and, you know, this is something I talk about all the time. When you look, we only have 2 sources of funding. We have the state, and the county and the federal gives us some things. So there's not a whole lot I think we can do with respect to changing the state and what it gives us. There's not a whole lot we can do. Maybe there is, but not a whole lot. The only other place we can ever go is the county. And so, you know, I've been talking about this formula. While it's been touted as a great thing and a great way to not have to go hat in hand and you know, beg for money every year, I think it has some drawbacks too. What I would argue is that I think a formula is great to have to establish, let's say, a baseline budget of what, you know, whatever that term is, a baseline budget. But the thing that I think's been missing ever since I've been on the board is that part of the discussion should be that there's also some needs that are going unfunded here, that if funded, we could provide a better education for our kids. That's a conversation we need to have with them, and I'll tell you why. When I heard Mr. O'Donnell present the budget to the Board of Supervisors the other evening, and I watched it, one of the things he said really got my attention. He said, I believe the budget we've given the school is fair, given the fact that they have declining enrollment. So what do you think of that statement?
Yeah.
Yes, it's true we have declining enrollment.
But we don't have declining costs.
No,
So,
we don't.
is it-
And every year we leave things off the table that we think we should have. So I really think at some point in time, we need to say, hey, wait a minute, the formula's a great idea, we love it, but this is what we can't do because of that formula. It's too sterile, is what I'm saying.
In conversations with the past administrator at the county, he wasn't a big fan of the formula. Because of
But, I
some
mean,
of
it
the
has
places.
its merits, it does. I mean, just to establish, let's say, at least a baseline, and you could have a negotiation with the county as to what component should be in that formula to get you to a baseline budget. But then, at least we should be able to go to them and say, hey, look, here are the things that we really should do, but we can't do. Would you consider? And maybe it's yes, maybe it's no. But I just think there needs to be, I don't think just taking what we get from the bean machine, as I call it, the calculator, I just don't think it's in the best interest of school system. That's my 2 cents.
Tom Gates, that's who it was. He wasn't a big fan.
But when you hear, I think it's a fair budget, given the fact that you have declining, I'm so sick and tired of
But
hearing about
nobody
declining
addresses
enrollment.
why there's not less kids being born, but they're not coming to Roanoke County.
Yes. Okay.
So,
Well,
Susan, you all are gonna, whether it's a survey, whether you're gonna kind of give us a better breakdown of our, the ages of our bus drivers, who would be on, who qualifies for Medicare. Mr. Butzer, I guess, maybe could we check with Stacy to see,
Yeah, as long
about
as,
the
as long
policy?
as we don't get in any discrimination issues or anything like that. I mean, if there are other corporations who do what you
Uh-huh.
said, then I'm sure it's okay. We just would want to.
Right, exactly.
Just want to
Sure.
check, right?
I mean, if we could get this done, that would be awesome.
One question on summer school. Do we anticipate that we will have an increase after, this COVID year? Do we see an increase in our numbers for summer school?
For this coming summer or moving forward?
No, this
This
summer.
coming summer? Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, needs, and that's why, for this summer's programs, we're gonna take full advantage of, our COVID funds. We're incentivizing, with, adjusting the pay rate this summer, to make sure we have teachers willing to work and so forth. We're looking to provide transportation, which we don't normally do for summer programs, so, the need is definitely there, and, the schools will be pulling out the stops to try to, make sure everybody who has that need is taking advantage of it.
Okay.
Mr. Ray brings up a good point. Are we going to have it a work session? Because this has got to be a huge, we haven't addressed it because we've been so focused on getting back to school. But point well taken, are we going to have like a work session where we address the needs of our students moving forward? Because
Some are gonna be behind.
yeah, I
and
gotta
need to be.
believe we've got some, and this is just me personally, I don't know this, but, and you know where I'm going, but that some are stuck in the grade level they were if they haven't got, if they haven't participated. If they're, so is it,
Oh, right.
What are we gonna do?
when are we gonna start the assessment process? I guess
Right,
is what I'm-
to figure out.
Yeah, that's already in
what type
place,
of
but you're wanting to
learning
report
laws,
about those efforts.
Okay,
Is that right?
so you'll probably be bringing it
We
next
certainly
work
can.
session, or?
Sure.
I mean, I just know, I think that this isn't just, I think we're ahead of the curve, right? Because
Yeah. Yeah,
we've
we can
done a
definitely
much better
report on
job,
that. That's
right?
These guys, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
right, we've done a much better job, so we know that, but there's still gonna be that population
Oh, absolutely.
that we're gonna have that's over and above normal years,
Yep.
so. okay.
Speaking of which, this is a different topic. We do need to look at that April work session date, because it's following our spring break, but then we can circle back around to that topic, so. I guess, to Ms. Peterson's point, looking at pages 25 and 26, if we follow this plan as she's suggesting, and let's say, we wind up with an odd amount, she's got $73,000 on there. Looking at pages 25 and 26, I mean, certainly we'll look at that and prioritize. But if you all have input in terms of, board priorities, we can certainly, hear that. I mean, you can look at the list. So I don't know if you have any input on that, but certainly that's welcome.
I don't think you have to hear my priority, but that's where I would be.
Well, I'm good with what's recommended up there, and I think the fact that we have not shut the door on benefits for drivers.
Right.
And
It's definitely a need,
workers,
right?
Nutrition workers, keep saying that. For all of you who are watching out there.
But let's say one thing about that. I agree. I absolutely agree. That's where we need to move in that direction. But my only thing is that, and I don't want to minimize. I don't want anyone to take away that I'm minimizing. But by the same token, those drivers, and if we could increase some of that capacity, those guys will carry 50 and 60 kids sometimes. The safety factor of having those kids delivered and having qualified personnel and not having mechanics drive our kids around, not that they're obviously qualified, but it leaves us a void, just like we did with the maintenance program when we, if we have to parse it out and do it in years, I just think, to me, those bus drivers are where we start, if we can.
Well, is that about it? I just want to say, and I mean this sincerely, I guess this is my fifth year on the board, and I will say that with each year that you've been in this job, this budget process is getting easier and easier for board members.
I was going to say, maybe not easier for Ms.
No,
Peters.
but I'm serious, is that I just remember us agonizing over, well, what ADM do we pick?
Good point.
And that, to me, was always blew my mind, So and you've taken the guess out of that. I just think you've made this whole process. I just remember it being a lot more contentious before. There were many board members pursuing their own little projects before, and that's all kind of gone away. And I just hope it stays that way because I like the way it's working.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
So you don't want to divide the remaining 73,000 out of
We don't get to take them back to our district.
You know what? Whoever's running for re-election, let's divide that. Mike and I don't need any. We're good.
We can do
Well,
it.
in all seriousness, what we'll do, if we, whatever answer we get on the health benefits piece, right? If we wind up with a figure like that, we'll go through with staff, prioritize, and, put it to the best use we can, so. That'll be
Okay.
included in the final report.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Oh, you want to circle back? Do you want to make a change to the April work session, possibly?
Well, it's just food for thought. It does fall on spring break, so.
Yeah, unless we don't have any real major topics, I'm for just canceling that one, rather than making staff come in and do a
I
work
won't be
session.
here.
I won't be here.
Oh, okay.
Y'all miss all the time.
Okay. Yes, sir.
The Key West, Florida guy that just got back.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
1 week at a casino and the other
Why don't
week
you,
in Key West.
yeah,
We got to get our priorities.
I think we
Do you
can
think
just agree to cancel that work session.
Unless there's something that comes up that you see a need for.
Unless I hear another option.
Okay, right.
I mean, I'm fine with that unless Chris has anything on the facility side he needs to present or,
I'll be looking more towards mid to late April for that.
And we could do it at a board meeting, some of it.
Oh, we can
Sure.
do- Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let's
Well,
just,
I apologize for this, because I didn't verify.
No, it's not. It's the week after spring break.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
thought spring break was the
start-
week of the 28th,
No,
oh.
you're
okay.
right.
and the work session would be on April 6th.
No, the work session was
No.
on March 30th.
Oh.
You were right.
The meetings were scheduled, we tried to keep
Gotcha.
from having 2 meetings in 1 week.
Gotcha.
Okay.
They backed up the work session.
It's because of the way the right, I gotcha. Okay. So that's where that was my confusion. So because of that, because the avoidance of having 2 meetings the same week, you scheduled it for March 30th, So the question becomes, do you want to not have it, or do you want to double up and do it on April 6th? That'd be your choices, I guess. Does that make sense?
I kind of agree with you unless there's something, I mean, we could always add it back, you know, if something comes up in the next couple of weeks, right?
We added this one.
Added
Yeah,
this one, that's
I mean,
right.
so,
Well, if there's anything that needs to be presented, otherwise it can be done at the regular board meeting too. If there's anything, right?
you know, or we could have a work session after the board meeting, right?
Sure.
There you go.
There we go, sir.
Okay.
All right, so we'll take that one off.
All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.